Hey, what do you say? This is Boz and Men speaking out. And I am honored once again to be around greatness, and more greatness on this episode 68 of the podcast titled, Is It Expensive to Be Yourself? Now, what I have is I echo, and I'm going to stop that. All right, that was me listening to myself. That's very dangerous. Start listening to myself, it's crazy. But anyway, I've got three of my dear brothers on this podcast who were all with me in our ITSMF Power 54 cohort. Um, and I could not have asked for a better group of individuals. So before we get started on the title, Is It Expensive to Be Yourself? Let me introduce you to these giants in the virtual room. We're going to start with Emmanuel. Emmanuel, what's going down, my brother? How are you
What's
doing?
Boz? I'm doing good, man.
Doing good. If you wouldn't mind telling the listeners a little bit about yourself, man, the viewers, listeners, the fans.
So the fans. So I'm Emmanuel, live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Originally from London, England. What's there about myself, man? There's a lot about myself, but I guess I think one thing I want to say is I'm just really privileged to be here, Buzz. I appreciate you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited. I'm also excited to learn from you, just to see what this experience is like, and to be amongst my brothers here as well. Man, I am in awe. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, my friend. You're welcome. I'm honored myself too. Now we have the one and only, the only one, Mr. James LeGrand, all the way from Florida.
That's right.
30 South. What's going on, James?
Good evening, everybody. My name is James LeGrand, originally from New Jersey. I've been in Florida for the last 13 years. I'm a professional program and project manager in corporate America, martial artist, father, family man. And just like Manny said, honored to be amongst these great brothers right here. And it's a privilege to be invited by Boz to be here. So thank you again, Boz.
You're welcome, my friend. And I'm going to tell you something. I watched this man do fingertip push-ups, right? Fingertip push-ups. And I got tired just watching him do the first one. So, don't mess with him. He's quick with the elbow, the pen, and, he's a walking weapon, but he's a very peaceful man, too. There you go.
Thank you.
And all the way from Southside Chicago, Southside, right? Southside?
Hey, you know what time it is.
Yeah, Southside Chicago, Delano, the DR, Robinson. What's going on, Delano? How you doing, baby?
Man, what's going on, brother? You kind of disrespectful. You put me behind James. You know you were supposed to do him last. Now I got to go behind him and talk about myself. I don't have nothing to say, actually. After he talk, you just be like, I'm done. Nah, I'm cool. Nah, but, I'm Delano Robinson. I am a IT senior leader working for a pharmaceutical company. In my past times, I actually enjoy dogs. I have dogs. I've actually become a hobby breeder. Also just enjoy spending time with my family and giving back to the community. Those are the things that are important to me that I see through in my lifetime. So that's kind of, me and some of the stuff I'm about.
My man, right on, right on. Like I said, once again, folks, in the room with greatness. Of course, obviously, I'm Boz, your host, and I'm honored to have these gentlemen on my 68th episode titled, Is It Expensive to Be Yourself? So let me ask you a question. I'm going to start with you, James. All right. Do you have value?
Do I have value?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's how I expected that answer, right? Have you ever thought about your own expenses?
Absolutely. And that's not always financial.
That's right. And how much are you worth?
More than I think. And I'll leave it at that. Probably more than I think I am.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. All right, thank you. What about you, Manny? What about you? Do you have value?
So I absolutely do have value. But I'll be honest, sometimes I'm not always aware of what my value is, right? And I have people who remind me of my value, right? So, I feel like I can put out things in the world, but I don't always understand kind of the value that I put out in the world, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Have you ever thought about your own expense?
I do, but a lot of it is around my time. So I think about, hey, spend time working on a specific task? Is it something that brings me joy? And if it doesn't bring me joy, should I outsource that task? Maybe pay someone else to do it who's much more efficient than I am. And that way I can buy back my time, right? So I look at it like that.
Okay. What about you? How much are you worth in your eye? And I'm not asking for dollars.
Yeah. No, how much am I? I'm learning that every single day. I'll be honest. Like I think my value and my worth, if you like, has increased over time. I think there's a lot of like self value that you assign to yourself, and I think as you learn more about yourself, especially as you mature and you age, you start to realize, hey, I'm good, right? And I still have more to kind of learn and teach myself in terms of my wealth, my worth and self-worth.
Okay, awesome. Delano, do you have value?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Have you ever thought about your own expense?
All the time. I mean, I feel like that's one of the things that stays at the top of my mind as I engage in different channels of my life, because I think you have to think about the concepts that you're talking about across multiple spectrums. You can't just jump into this one silo. There's a lot of places that this goes. So I'm excited about this podcast and what we're talking about here today, boss.
That's what's up. So how much are you worth?
To be honest with you, this is something that I've had to manage it a different way because of my upbringing, because of some of the stuff that I've been through. I honestly feel like I'm worth the world. And so, a lot of times I find myself having to balance and make sure that I'm also being, humble about what I think my worth is, just to make sure it's not rubbing off on, different aspects of my life, my relationships the wrong way.
Mm. Okay, that's what's up, man. Let me answer that same question. So, do I have value? Absolutely, no doubt. Have I thought about my own expense? Yes, I've thought about what I've given up and what I received, right? Because there's a balance somewhere in there, right? You making withdrawals and deposits, and somewhere that life bank account has got to have some sort of balance, if that makes sense, right? How much am I worth? I'm still figuring that one out. I'm worth a lot to some and none to others. But at the end of the day, it's about what I'm worth to myself. And so when I talk about worth, I'm not talking about net worth or, listeners. I'm talking about your inner greatness, right? Think about that for a second, your inner greatness, but people don't understand that, your inner greatness comes with a cost, right? It comes with a serious cost because they'll see you, they'll judge you, they'll like you, they'll hate you, and a lot of them out there don't even care about you.
Yeah.
Why? Because being you isn't always easy. Now is it? Being your true self can be painful. People don't understand being yourself comes with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Or, I shouldn't say ugly, the controversial aspects about yourself. Now, do you feel what I just said, that you can be completely open with yourself? Delano, you first.
Wow. You know what? For me, it's been a journey. And I would say for majority of my life, I would say the answer to that would have been no. But I've finally had some experiences in my life that have pushed me to say, you have to do that. That is a must do if you want to find peace in your life. And so that's something that I've, actively been working on and making sure that I'm moving in the right direction.
That's what's up. That's what's up. What about you, Manny? Do you think that you can completely be open with yourself?
I mean, I feel like Delano really summed it up, and we always call Delano a little bro, and he always amazes me just how mature he is. I wish I had that level of maturity when I was his age. But like for me, the same thing, right? It's taken a lot of time, a lot of conversations, right? Going to therapy, just opening up to kind of, really get to that point of like acceptance. And it's still ongoing, right? It's still ongoing. It's not like I can say, yes, I am there, but it's just something that you chip away at day in, day out, I think is my answer to that, right? It's ongoing, it never ends, it's constant work.
Gotcha. What about you, James? Do you feel you can be completely open with yourself?
I am absolutely completely open with myself to sometimes to my own detriment. I am not always transparent with everyone else. So,
okay. Do you feel that when you're completely open with yourself, that has a bit of a challenge with psychological safety, right?
not with myself. I feel like the more open I am with myself, the more I understand where I am right now and where I need to go next. So there's a safety, I think, in just my past, right? With every challenge, every personal challenge I've been through or had to think through, I've come out of it okay, and I've had some big ones. So when I go through a new challenge today internally, I know that at the end of it, I'm going to be okay. But going through it is still going through it.
Okay, okay. That was a great response. You just made the wheels turn in my head a little bit. So now I'm gonna switch the game up a little bit. All right, Delano, this is for you
Oh,
because I love you.
do
That's
we
it.
blazing? Shots blazing?
I love you. Okay, so there's this thing I practice called the love bank. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys heard of it, know what it is, but you have to continue to put love tokens or deposits into your mate's love bank in order to get that balance up. So when something happens, she can show you a little grace because you got a high balance in the bank, right? What about your bank? What about your expense? What about your experiences to build up your bank? Do you think that you have in your lifetime enough experiences to kind of set an expense of experience, when it comes to who you are as a person, who Delano Robinson is, right? How high is your balance?
From my perspective, that's a real deep question. That's a real deep question, and the reason I say that is because, as someone who is what I would call newer to serious relationships, for me, I've had to learn a lot fast. And to be completely transparent, where I've learned from is the same place that I've learned from most of my life. I actually enjoy having conversations with others and learning from their experiences, seeing what they've been through, and truly trying to glean feedback and a way to be better because of the relationships that I have. An example of that is, the brothers here. We've been through an experience together and we've become closer. I feel like I've got tons of brothers and sisters I can pick up the phone and talk about almost anything. And so, that's been my way in life is, really looking to those people who have been there and done it. I like to kind of live by a phrase that says emulate the greats, and part of the greats is people that have lived life a little bit and have some experience and wisdom to offer you. They're worth the time. You need to open your ears and listen. So I feel grateful because I have so many connections and so many resources that it helps put me in a better place every day.
Okay, okay, okay. That's what's up. Thank you, Manny.
So it's interesting, this idea of a love bank, right? So for me, and I work in financial services, I didn't mention that at the beginning, but like I spent a good chunk of my lifetime kind of spending credit, if you like, when it comes to kind of love. So rather than this idea of let me deposit into the bank so that I have something for myself, and then once my bank account is full, then I can give love to others. I didn't spend my life like that. I wasn't raised like that, right? So if you like, my analogy is I had a credit card, right? And I was just spending on that credit card. And to the point where, the bank eventually just says, hey man, you're too much in debt, right? Like we need to call this back. So I got to that point where I'm like, hey, I'm overspending and there's nothing for myself. Like, so we, using the analogy, if I had an emergency come, and you have these emergencies in relationships, where am I going to pull from? So I got to a point, like in my relationships, in my friendships, you know, be it with a romantic partner or be it with family, is I was always giving them and giving them what I felt they needed, tapping into my credit, until I got to a point in my life, was probably around Delano's age, where I was like, this isn't sustainable. Like, I need to fill my pot up first, you know, make myself whole before I can really give out to the people that I love, right? The people that are close to me. So I've completely reinvented myself and the way I think and the way I look at the world. And it hasn't been comfortable, because that's not how I was raised. That's not the way my parents showed me to move around the world. So that's something that's ongoing, right? And to hear, you know, like Delano's experience there, and he's talking about his journey, you know, it reminds me of my journey, right? And I feel today now, you know, I have a network of people like Delano said, where I can, you know, pick up the phone and say, how do you deal with this situation? I didn't have that before. So I did what I thought was right, and I spent on credit.
Wow. You know, here's the thing, right? What you just said. That's what ITSMF did for us, right? It gave Delano you. It gave me James. It gave James Delano. It gave you me. It brought us all together, like Delano was saying, right? As a family. So when we run into situations and we don't, we use our credit, as you would say, right? And we got a high balance. Well, we can call each other up for a consolidation loan. So
I'm broke, baby.
You know, but all jokes aside, that's what it did. We talking today.
Yeah.
Right? 10, 11 months ago, who was Emmanuel? I knew Delano, of course, we worked together, but we didn't talk on this level, right? So it even brought us internally together closer, right? So you think about the blessing that came out of that whole experience. You know, hey, don't get me wrong now, my balance on my credit is getting up there too. But at the same time, you know, I can reach out to my brothers and say, hey, I need a loan, bro. Let me hold on to something. You know, but at the end of the day, I love that, man. I love that. I want to shift gears a little bit though too here, and I want to talk about social media. Right.
That's a lot there.
You know, social media can put a dollar amount on you, right? Can it? Right?
You can try.
Yeah, but it does though. If you sit and do the math, social media doesn't. You know, I think I sent a picture of a young man downtown Chicago looking all fly in this nice jacket with his hat on. You know, and that picture was dope. I get it, but it has a perception. Is that who this man was? I ain't gonna say no names. You know who he was. Is that is that who this man was, or did social media put a dollar amount on you without you even knowing it? Did it? I don't know. Right? I got 8 girls. People say, man, I know he's spending money. They all grown now. I got all my money now.
I got all my money now.
Yeah. But you know what though? There was a point in time when things were a little tight, but that's okay because I got them through. Got to get through to get through. Go through to get through. I'm sorry. But in the day when I show pictures of me and my family and you know, us taking trips and doing this and doing that, the perception, but that was expensive. Oh, he got it. Do it. Right? So I guess the question I have is, you know, does it put a price tag on you? Does it, James? Does social media put a price tag on you?
I think it can if you let it. So there are people who live every day for social media, right? That's where they're getting their value from, right? Today I have X number of likes on this video, on this picture, so my value's high. Tomorrow I did a video, not as many likes, not as many people interested, and now suddenly I feel like my value's diminished. So there are some people who do that. I went the exact opposite direction. There was a time where I was posting just positive quotes every day, just a positive quote, just trying to give something positive to people. And after a while, I started noticing the trolls coming out, right? Just people just looking to have a platform to say anything negative that they could. And on the day I realized that my posts were doing more harm than I wanted it to, I was looking for it to do good, but that balance of harm versus good was in the wrong direction. I literally just said, I'm done. And I stopped posting to social media. And that was that. So I'm a big consumer of social media. I will watch a lot of other videos and other posts and podcasts like this to learn from, looking for the positive out there, looking for those that can educate me. But I decided to stop contributing because for me, at least, it wasn't worth my time. So we talk about value. I found no value in posting to social media any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Manny, wow. Hold on. So you stopped. Let me probably ask Manny this question. So you stopped. So you felt that it was too time consuming, or you found yourself in some sort of mental challenge with, the likes and the not likes and this basic and being in comparison or being in competition with yourself, basically.
I felt I was more concerned about the emotional damage trolls were doing using my content to other people.
Mm.
That's where my concern was. It wasn't about likes or views or anything like that. It was, is this positively adding value to people's lives? Yes or no? And if I was giving a platform that allowed other people to use it in a bad way, I decided to stop creating the platform.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. But basically protecting yourself was how I interpret that. And once again, folks, you're listening to Men Speaking Out, and I'm actually on this podcast with my wonderful guests, Emmanuel, Delano, and James. And of course, once again, episode 68. The title is it expensive to be yourself? Emmanuel, I want to hit you with a question. Okay.
Sure.
Now, we're talking about social media right now. And of course, obviously, people can look at social media and they'll see graduations and they'll see concerts and travel and things of that nature, and it gives yourself even pictures from our ITSMF, graduation and so forth, and throughout the photos we've taken at restaurants and fellowshipping and so forth. So I guess the question I have for you is that, do you think that, when people see all of this hoorah, do you think it misrepresents you? And so do you think that you could be understood or shown a little bit better, being who is Emmanuel?
So I'm a person. Go on.
The question makes sense, right? You understand my question?
I think it makes sense, but I'll answer it and then you can guide me. So I'm a person who doesn't engage with social media. I used to engage with social media. I had a Facebook account, Instagram, Twitter at one point. But then, I just found myself it representing the good and the worst of people, right? And for me, to your point about representation, having known people who have lots of followers on social media, if I hadn't known that person, I would make my impression of that person based on their social media presence and, have my opinion of them. But knowing them in person, knowing that they were, completely different people. Mm-hmm. So, I choose not to engage with social media because I don't think I personally would be represented well in it. I think it's beyond the days now where people can just put a post out there and express their opinion. I think there's, people have put posts out there that have come back to bite them, right? In the heat of the moment. Hey, I'm just going to comment on something. And the next thing you know, they're in hot water, right? And probably rightly so in many cases. But I choose not to engage in terms of my own posts, and I don't have any accounts, and I will surf social media as it serves me if I want to look something up, to the point where Instagram, Facebook tells me, okay, enough, right? You've seen enough content, sign up for an account. And for me, that's my way of saying, okay, enough's enough, right? Because when I did actively engage in social media, I found myself, the first thing I did in the morning was scroll, right? The last thing I did at night, scroll, see what this person's up to. And if you think about like the early days of Facebook, we were just connecting with our friends. It was like this, a group of guys having a conversation. And then it's now morphed into this actual platform where I'm following people I don't know, right? And I want to follow their lives. Well, I don't do that, but I know people do that. They follow their lives, and to your point,
He
we look
said,
at where
I
they're
know
going
people
on
who do it. I
vacation,
don't do it.
what food they're eating, right? And I'm just like, I got more in my own life in this reality that brings me joy. Why do I need to, watch someone else on vacation? Let me go on vacation, right? So, I don't use it. I don't engage with it. I occasionally will dabble, if you like, if I need to look something up. It's usually around sport. But beyond that, I try to see it for what it is, and it's just another form of attention grabbing, right? And people have made, don't get me wrong, it's been a good platform, especially for people of color, right? Where mainstream media organizations wouldn't have given us a platform. Like I occasionally on YouTube see a bunch of Black British YouTubers who've become extremely successful, KSI, and there's a bunch of guys who've made millions of dollars, right? But they never would have got a platform in mainstream media. So there's a lot of good in this social media world, but there's a lot of bad. And I think the bad outweighs the good at this point for a select few.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It has to be right kind of set of balance, but will it ever be? Right? Will ever be? Delano.
Man, I've been itching to talk about this, and it's interesting because I think I have a slightly different perspective. I agree with both of my brothers that have spoke before me, but I've got a concept that I live by with social media, which is use social media or let social media use you. And I think that that's real because the example that I would give you is, LinkedIn is social media. Whether you want to admit to that or not, it is. And we know that having a LinkedIn profile as a professional is extremely important. So if you don't have a profile, you can talk to certain people. Not everybody's like this, but you could talk to somebody and you'd be like, they're like, hey, you got a LinkedIn? And you're like, no. And they're just gonna write you off. Like, oh, okay, maybe you should think about having a LinkedIn, right? And so, for me, it's important to realize that social media is a tool. Like if you think about the roots of social media and the good that it's done, like I come from a big family. We're not extremely close, but I come from a big family. And when I think about how that would have worked out as far as like knowing people, knowing what they're doing, knowing what they're about, if you think about that 20 years ago, it would have been probably a little harder to know some of the information that we had. But now, because we've got tools like Facebook and so on, I know more about my family than I would have ever known. So it's just like, I feel like when you think about certain concepts in life, there is one has to master their ability to use that concept. And I think that line applies to so much.
Yeah. I mean, it really does, right? I mean, you said social media could be a tool, right? Right. But not every tool works for every job, right? Exactly. So you sit and think about that for a second, right? And when I think about that, I think about the value of that tool used on with that person or that particular job or that particular, situation at hand. So, I want to kind of wrap this first segment up by saying, everything has a price and it specifies value, correct? Everything has a price, everything, right? Shop owners label each item with a price tag. It helps customers make the purchase decision quickly, right? If you know how much something is, you'll go in. That's why when you go look at a vehicle, and you don't see the price on the car, you already know in some situations it's either not the money you want to spend or it's too expensive for the human eye to acknowledge, right? Now think about the price on things such as your health, relationships, love, your inner reward for success, the price of helping someone, the price of asking for help. It allows you to have a different sort of value, because what happens is that it makes you not do things in vain and gives you a little bit more appreciation, not just for yourself, but for those around you too. So when I say the word value and expense and things of that nature, listeners, I'm not talking about money at all in any capacity. I'm talking about, like I said, your inner self, and what you do holds value, not just for you, but for those around you. For that being said, we're going to shift gears to time. Let's talk about time.
Man, Boz, I want to push you on something, bro. You know, I like to break the rules a little bit.
Go ahead. This is typical. Go ahead, though.
So I'm gonna push something at you, man. I want to push something at you.
On this one.
Oh man,
this is water, you know. This is water, you know.
Hey, whatever you decide to do, just be yourself. You know what I mean? So when I think about, like, you know, the like when you hit me and we talked about the cast, I immediately got to thinking. And you know, I'm one of those people that prepares, so you know, I jot down a few notes and whatever. But what I want to push back at you is making sure that we answer the question of the cast. And so I want to push a question to you, which is, do you truly feel? So I want to answer with some justification. So does it cost to be yourself? Yes or no? And dig into it for me.
Yes, I believe it costs to be me. Yeah, because it's only one me. Right? I'm the only Jamil Shabazz I know. From Southside Chicago, right? By the way, Indianapolis.
By the way, Indianapolis.
But, you know, I think it does cost, right? I think in some degree it does cost, because we do a lot of things daily that we don't know that we do, which is like code switching.
Yeah, what do that mean? Because there's some people gonna be like, "What do that mean?" You gotta hit him. Come on, bro. You gotta hit him with the details.
I can come to you, Delano, and I can say, "What's up, bro? How you doing, my man?" I can go to my colleague over here and say, "Oh, Bill, how are you?"
Stop it. Cut it out.
Okay. All right. Now, I just answered the question, but
let me hit you back though. So you talked about the, like, yeah, you believe it, right? But then there's this whole concept of management, right? Like, you got this capability of you and who you want to be. It's a capability in itself. You know what I mean? Like dang, I'm living life. I'm having experiences. I've been different relationships. Some have been great. Some have been like, what's going on with this? But it's like, you know, talk about how do y'all manage that, right? Like what's the what really goes into that? Yeah.
So I would start by saying this. There's a difference between cost and value, right? That's important, right? Not just financially, emotionally. There's a difference between cost and value. I'm going to put out a certain amount of energy into people because that's me. I get a lot of value when I can help good people, or I can do something for someone that I care about, right? So the cost is the cost, right? The energy, the time, the emotion, whatever that is. But the value I get back fills me up in a major way. It replaces everything I put out, right? However, if I'm given that same cost, but the value's not there, I'm really doing something I don't want to really do, but I'm doing it just so someone doesn't complain, or I'm doing something for someone because I feel obligated, or whatever the reason is. If it's not all the way positive, I'm not getting that value back, and now that energy's at a deficit.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, when I feel that energy deficit, I do have to pull back all the way, honestly, to manage my energy, to get myself back to baseline before I can go back out and start giving again. So that management for me is something I spend a lot of time thinking about. In ITSMF, the Management Academy, we talk a lot about the check-in, right? Mm-hmm. I do a lot of check-in, personal check-in, to say, where am I right now? And am I in a place where I can give from a surplus, or am I giving from a deficit, which will harm me? And I need to pull back and get myself back up to baseline.
So that's kind of how do you manage your relationships? And sorry, Buzz, if we're going off on a tangent. But
it's my fault. Look, it's always you. It's always a little brother's fault. He wanted to do something different. But I just felt like we had to answer this because I feel like it really drives the point home, because it's like, what is the answer? And then, like, how are y'all managing through that? I think people will be interested in that content.
Yeah. But you made a good point, James, right? You said about, hey, you give to a point until you can't give, and then you pull back. So how do you manage that relationship, right? So you're now dealing with people who expect James to turn up in a certain way, and now James isn't turning up in a certain way, right? So now their expectations are not being met. How do you manage that?
Well, to your point on that, because I watch myself and I watch my own personal energy so closely, I know when I'm getting close. So I can start pulling back and starting to arrange things that are coming up in such a way that I can spend that time by myself in meditation, self-reflection, and putting more value and more giving myself the value that I need to bring myself back up to baseline without others feeling like I'm not giving to them the way I was. So it is a bit of a trick. It's a bit of management. And it's taken me a long time to get this right. There were times where people were like, wow, you disappeared on me, right? that happened. That used to happen. It doesn't happen so much now. So I've gotten a lot better at recognizing where I am and the direction I'm going in to go, okay, I feel that deficit coming. I need to plan some things so I have some time by myself and get myself back to baseline.
One of the things that I would like to offer in that segment, Manny, is like one of the things you said is like, you're given in this relationship and, somehow something comes about. Like I've got another concept where it's just like, if the person can notice a shift in what you've been doing, then you probably gave too much. Like you spent too much. You know what I'm saying? Like I was looking at one of my favorite artists is Kevin Gates. And he said in one of his songs, he said, sometimes when you compromise who you are to appease others, you find yourself begin to die inside.
Mm.
And for me, what you said, like hit that point, like I'm giving so much that now I have to pull back. Like if you're giving so much that you got to pull back, you might be giving too much. And you need to be able to evaluate that situation and say, I'm doing something that I'm not truly comfortable with as a man. And I need to make sure that I'm not like, I think the goal is making sure that you don't have to pull back. Like you're managing in a way where you're just comfortable with this is what I'm giving and I'll become comfortable with that. And the way that I like to kind of get here is I feel like there is a so is it expensive to be yourself? For me, that the answer is yes. But the truth is that there's a budget, right? So if we're talking about expense, there's a budget.
Right.
So guess who gets to manage the budget? Me. I get to manage the budget. So now we're talking about my ability to manage my budget. And I feel like that's a whole different concept because I dug into, I'm like, look, I could probably afford a $750 or $1 million house. Would I be house poor? Meaning like I'm struggling to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the cost of that. Or I find something that's in my budget and my life feels a little bit more at peace to me because I've got a decent enough house. I can travel. I can do this. I can do whatever I want to do. I got a car that I like, whatever it might be. So I think, a lot of this stuff is about, and it's weird because as I've lived my life, I feel like as I was born, I was a person that had to live in black and white. Like, is it this or is it this? And as I've evolved and as I've, met people like you all and have learned from different experiences, it's like, nah, you really got to understand balance and you got to understand that gray space. You know what I mean? So I think that's how I've gotten there, where it's just like, look, I'm not perfect. I'm growing, but I also need to understand that I've got a budget. There's a lot of stuff around me, different channels that are requiring me to be a certain way or be. And it's just like at the end of the day, that's all good. But when I go to sleep at night, I got to live with me. You feel me?
Yeah. But
So
Can I just add one comment there too? Because I think the one concern I have is I would hate for people to walk away thinking that giving and cost and value is like a 1-for-1 proposition. I can give the same thing to someone that I love and feel overfilled, like overjoyed. My cup is running over. I'm so full. I give that same thing to someone who I really don't want to give it to, or that is going to abuse it in some way or won't appreciate it, and then it becomes the deficit. So sometimes that management's also about who you're allowing to, who are you giving to? And of course, life is life, right? We have, police officers give tickets. We have managers that sometimes have bad days, right? We have, family members that can sometimes wear on us, right? And that all pulls from, that that's more cost than value in those cases, right? But then those same people in different contexts, all of a sudden, what you're giving to them gives back to you in droves. So it's interesting. Yeah.
But I think so too. There's something that we do all the time. You whenever you purchase something and then you sit back, you say, "Damn, why did I buy that? Did I really need that?" Then you start to have buyer's remorse, right? And we do that same thing with individuals, with people, right? Why did I give so much? Why did I, give that person my time, right? Why did I even take them a minute or two to listen or to be even engaged in conversation with this individual? Because has no value whatsoever to me, but we have to make sure we look at it from a different vantage point. We got to look at it from the value from them, right? This Men Speaking Out podcast, yes, it can probably have no value to Emmanuel and no value to Delano, but it's got value to me and James, right? So if you sit and do the math, I've got to be able to look at it not just from the energy I'm giving out, but also the energy I'm receiving. Because, being a mentor and a coach myself, at the company I work for, there's plenty of times when people tap me on the shoulder and I'm like, okay, let me give this person some time, not because I don't want to, because I need to, right? And of course, being in leadership, let me make sure that I give the same amount of respect, time, compassion, communication and so forth to my team across the board. So that way, each individual, although it might be subjects, it might catch my interest, it might be things that I'm really not interested in, but I have to be fair, right? And I have to be inclusive. So, if you sit and do the math around it, yeah, not everything or everybody's going to bring you value. Absolutely, right? Not everybody's going to bring you value, but at the same token, we've got to look at it from different vantage points so we can truly understand maybe we bring value to them.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Delon, you got any more questions before we
No, my bad, bro. I ain't mean to hijack the cast. I felt like I wanted to make sure people, I wanted to make sure they got the nuggets because I know how wise y'all are. I'm like, I can't let them sneak out of here with giving them the management techniques and how they look at it. So, you take over, man. You the man. I'm just here.
Hey, I'm doing what I'm on you. Okay, I'm doing what I'm on you.
Man, I'm a straighten up.
Oh, gotta love it. Okay, we got about another 10 to 15 minutes here, so I want to get into this. It's time. Let's talk about time. Emmanuel, is time money? And if so, why? And if not, why?
I mean, time to me is absolutely money, right? And I think I may have alluded to this at the beginning. For me, I will figure out the things that bring me joy. And the things that don't bring me joy, I'll find a way to find someone else who's better than me to complete those tasks for me, right? And there's sometimes when I know I'm not good at something, but as I said, it brings me joy. Like I ain't good at mowing the lawn, but hey, I mow the lawn every other week or whenever it doesn't look good, because it's just that time to just focus on that one task. I'm not scrolling on my phone. I'm just focusing on this task, right? But I've got to the point now, and I never mowed the lawn when I was a kid because from where I'm from, if you got a lawn, then you got a lot of money. So, this is something that I decided I wanted to do when I moved into this house. But I've been doing it 2 years now. And I'm like, I'm going to pay someone to do this because you know what? It's not worth it anymore for me. It's not bringing me joy. Okay. So absolutely, time is money. And ultimately, our time, depending on who you are, is worth something different, right? I look at my time at work and I realize the time that I get compensated for as a male, in a financial services industry is very different for the time that, say, a female or a black female, gets compensated for, right? So it really depends on who you are as well, how much that time is worth. And I know that wasn't your question, but I think it's an important point to make, right? It's not just about the money, but it's about how much money you get too.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. James, what do you think? Is time money? If so, why? And if not, why?
I'm going to go a little in a different direction. I don't believe time is money. The reason why is you can make more money. You cannot make more time, right? So time is something that you can waste, you can spend, or you can invest, similar to money. But the difference is you can't make more time. Once the second is ticked off, it's gone forever. So we're all born with an hourglass with so much sand in it, and we don't know how much sand is in it. But every day that sand is running, and we don't know how much is left. So, time is our most precious resource, because without time, you don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you. Good response. Delano, now you come behind James, but
And I'm sick of you. Why you think you can keep doing this to me and it just be okay? Like, it's not okay. Put Manny after him. No, but you know what, man? I actually have an interesting response similar to James. So for me, I'm actually part Jamaican, and so one of the leaders and legends that I followed is Bob Marley, and I think he was quoted saying something that I think helps me land my point. I personally don't think time is money. I think that when you start to talk about money, you're talking about a possession, right? And a possession makes you rich. And what Bob Marley was saying is like, I don't have that type of richness. My richness is life forever. And so when you think about what that is whatever that man is saying he loves in his life, that's what makes him rich. So that's his relationships, that's experiences, that's different things that one can remember. It's not about money. You know what I'm saying? Like, money may make some of that stuff happen, but the true love and where people are trying to get with that is that, like, time is something that I need to spend doing what I love.
right.
And when you look at what Marley said, what he's telling you is he's like, man, my richness is in life. I love my life. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to love my life. I'm here to fulfill my purpose. My personal purpose is to continue to grow as a man while growing other people. I have a firm belief in the lifted uplift, right? And so I spend my time doing that, and that is what fuels the richness in my life. So I don't agree that I wouldn't say time is money. I don't just get there, because if all you here doing is making money, are you truly living?
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, I would leave that with people. If all you if time is money and all you doing is waking up and making money and going to sleep, wake up, make money, are you living life? Like, is that great? I
But
don't know.
doesn't it come back though to how you manage your budget? So, like, I'm not alluding to spend every waking hour making money, but if you can make enough money in that time, that, if you like, ring fenced proportion of time in a week, and you make enough money, then that means that, you know what, at the weekend, I don't need to have a second job. I can spend time with my loved ones. I can spend time on my hobbies. So that's kind of where I come from it. So the more money you make, if you spend it right, allows you to do all those things. There's lots of people who have a lot of time on their hands and no money, and they can't pursue their
So
love for life, right? I'm not saying that's everybody, and I really understand your analogy where you're coming from.
Right.
But I look out in the world and I can see people, they got time on their hands, they also have no money, right? And then they can't do these things, they can't live their life. So,
Well, if you sit and think about it, right, the average person in this modern world lives about 4,000 weeks in their lifetime. That's about the age of 76.7, right? That's from the USA Today. I pulled that number. It's not just made up. I did some research. But with some exercise and healthy living, you can extend that, right? But then again, with some disease and sickness, it can be short-lived. That's time as it stands, right? And so you think about time, you think about sleep, you think about work, you think about trips, you think about family, you think about aging, you think about turning pages to a history book, right? But now money, I'm manual with you. Money's necessary. You can pay bills, right? Buy food. You got to live.
Yeah.
Correct?
But I think it's important to nail that right on the head, right? Like what you're saying is money is a means to an end. But as a person, when we're talking about this energy and what we're creating and what we're doing, we have to decide what that end is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like nobody can decide that for you. Like, yeah, you're probably gonna need a little bit of money to help that. But everybody on this call, I guarantee if I started to dig into what you really use your money to do, I think that we would find the real purpose in what we love, what we do as men. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a broad concept that, like, if you really want to get into it, you got to dig into it to really get the fruits and the juice of what's there.
Look, I say this all the time. A great philosopher once said, "Mo money, mo problems."
Who was that philosopher? I don't know who that one was.
As I was saying,
as
I was continuing the sentence real quickly here. All right. Basically, what I'm saying is, but we earn money, right? We earn money with careers, promotions, being entrepreneurs, and heck, some of us are even giving it to us in a trust fund from, wills or loved ones that we lost along the way, but not time. You can't save it. You can't recover it. You can't exchange it, nor can you invest it. Let me invest time now to get more time later. Now, so what can you do with time? James, you said that, right?
Yeah.
Similar to what you said earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what can you do with time? Tell you what you can do with time. You know what you can do with time? You can build a happier, more meaningful life with time. You shouldn't waste your time. This is my perspective. You shouldn't waste your time in pursuit of money. You should use your money to better facilitate time. Did you get that? Because we just lost 52 minutes and 25 seconds of our life. We can never get back. It was a great 52 minutes and 50-some seconds, 24 seconds. But at the same time, can't get it back. Man,
I will argue that we didn't lose nothing.
Right.
Not in this moment. We didn't lose anything.
You're absolutely right.
And
correct.
The reason that I say that is because the wisdom that's been on this call, I've always said, like, when you talk about impacting people, if you can touch one person, like if you can impact one person's life, like truly impact it, like you've done a lot of good. And so if somebody listening to this podcast finds any good in the wisdom that has been shared, this time wasn't wasted. So I like you got to be careful about how you categorize what you spend your time doing too. Like part of the challenge is aligning time with your life purpose. So if if you're living in your life purpose and you're able to do that at work and you're able to do that at home and you're able to do that, you know what I mean? For most of your time, are you truly wasting time?
No. Look at hold on for a second. Take off my glasses.
I just said. Hey, I'm just saying. Look at this. Last time you looked at me, you was like this.
Look at little bruh, dropping nuggets. You know what I mean? And we got a young lady on the podcast in the comments. She said it was great. You gained jewels and no money was made. How about that? Fellas, listen. I just really want to thank you all very much for your time. It was very valuable and didn't cost us anything. And I appreciate it, and I love you all dearly. And
that's beautiful.
I'm very blessed to have, gained brotherhood, friendship, and love from this ITSMF family and our Power 54 cohort. And we got some Power 54 folks watching right now. We got T. Reeves watching. I see we got.
Oh, man, T. Reeves.
We got
T. Gotti.
Yeah, we got people watching this already, and I want to give a shout out to Dr. Turner for giving us the education of life to help us all make us better individuals. And yeah, that was dope. That was dope.
Hey, appreciate you, Boz. It's been a pleasure being on the show. And you know, I know there's plenty of people that you can interact with and greatness you can bring on this show. But I'm proud that I was able to do this one with my brother Manny, James, and yourself. I really appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
Hey, thank you all.
Everything Delano said. Love you, brother. So
I'm just excited for the invite for us to do it again.
Stay tuned. I gotta say, business@menspeakingout.com and businesses on all platforms, the podcast, Apple, iHeartRadio, Google Play, you name it, we're there. I had to say that, fellas, before we end the podcast. All right. Hey, love y'all, man. Thank you, bro.
Hey, love, bro.
Love you too.
Hey, y'all be
Love.
good. Take care.
Love.
Yeah.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
All right.